Well, good morning. This is John Neerman, and it's my pleasure to call this meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to order. Today is Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. The time is 9:30 a.m., and I'll begin with the roll call. Good morning, Commissioner Lindley.
Good morning, Chairman.
And good morning, Commissioner Janeka.
Good morning, Chairman.
So we have more than a quorum. How about our General Counsel? Are you there?
I am. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Smith. And our Public Interest Counsel?
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Mr. McWhirter. I'd like to remind folks to keep their phones on mute when they're not speaking. I'd also like to remind anyone who is here only to listen that they can watch the meeting online, and that link is available on the agenda notice. For each item where argument or discussion is allowed, we will inform speakers of their time limits. Registration closed at 9:30, but if you'd like to address the Commission on a particular item, please email agenda@tceq.texas.gov with your name, affiliation, and the item that you'd like to comment on, and we will do our best to accommodate the request. For those making presentations, please wait to begin until I or our General Counsel have asked you to begin speaking, and make sure that you check that your line is unmuted before you speak. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for being present, and I'll ask you, Ms. Smith, to please call the first item.
Item number 1 is the application by the City of Denton for Municipal Solid Waste Permit number 1590B. The parties have been notified that the Commission will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And for the benefit of those who are not familiar with our process, we have a two-part analysis for considering requests for contested cases. First, we consider whether the requesters have met the procedural and substantive requirements to be entitled to a contested case. And then, assuming that at least one requester meets the requirements, we consider which issues are appropriate to refer for hearing. So part 1 is about who gets a hearing, and part 2 is about which issues are referred. Requesters who are affected in a manner that's different from the general public and who have articulated personal concerns that are relevant and material to the permit and have done so both in timely comments and a timely hearing request are entitled to a hearing. And colleagues, on this item, we had quite a few requesters. 189 people requested a contested case on this permit amendment. The overwhelming majority of them failed to state a personal concern. That is, they failed to say how they would be affected in a manner different from the general public. And this includes a large number of requesters who relied on a standard form letter. 8 requesters used the form letter but added language to further explain their concern. And of those 8, 4 of them did in fact express personal concerns that differentiate them from the general public. And those 4 also met the other procedural and substantive requirements for a contested case. And those are Kelly Compton, Donna Sincere, Debbie Whitworth, and Stacy Wolf. So I'm proposing that we grant their requests. In addition, there were another, roughly 30 requesters who did not use the standard letter at all. But again, most of those expressed only generalized concerns. 12 of them, however, did identify a personal justiciable issue and met the other requirements for a contested case hearing, and I'm going to propose that we grant their requests as well. And they are Heidi Berry, Jessica Bond, Kevin Bond, Taylor Brown, Cullen Gibson, Jody Gilbert, Laisa Gomez, Marina Suslova, Laura Threlfell, Adelnison Uloa, David Neal, and Brittany Ward, with apologies for any names that I mispronounced. So those are the requests that I would grant, those folks that I named, and I would deny all the remaining requests. And let me pause there and see how I did, compare my notes with with y'all. Commissioner Lindley, how did that sound?
I was just double checking, and I do believe that's how I came down on the parties as well.
Okay. Commissioner Janeka?
I caught the same. You were listing the second batch of 12 in alphabetical order, but for Mr. Niels, and I followed you. So I found the same individuals who requested for the same reasons. Thank you for laying out the reasoning.
Okay, great. So, and we'll get to read them again in a motion here, so we can cross-check. But we'll grant the named persons and then deny the remaining requests. And with that, let's turn to the issues. And again, for the benefit of those who are not familiar with our process, we refer issues of fact that have been timely raised by an affected person and that are relevant and material to the application. And to put that another way, the issues have to be within the Commission's jurisdiction on this type of an application. So, for example, we can't consider economic impacts such as the effects on property values. We can't consider air quality in connection with this waste permit because air emissions are authorized under a different permit and so on. So colleagues, there were numerous relevant material issues raised, and let me just dive into them. I would organize them as follows, and I have identified a dozen of them. So the first is whether the landfill gas management plan meets the applicable requirements. Next, whether the site operating plan is adequate to prevent nuisance odors and control disease vectors. Whether the draft permit is protective of the health and welfare of the affected persons and their families. Whether the applicant provided required traffic data and documentation under 30 Texas Administrative Code Section 330.61I. Whether the visual screening of the expansion satisfies the Commission's rules. Whether the draft permit contains adequate control measures to protect groundwater, surface water, and drinking water. Whether the landfill expansion is compatible with surrounding land use. Whether the applicant's compliance history warrants denying or altering the permit. Whether there are adequate controls for wind-blown waste. Whether notice was adequate. Whether measures to maintain landfill cover are adequate. And finally, whether measures to control dust are adequate. And let me stop there and see how that organization stacks up with your views of the issues. Commissioner Lindley?
I've lined up with you.
Great. Commissioner Janeka?
I also found myself in agreement with the two of y'all.
All right. I didn't see that there were some requests for reconsideration. I didn't see that those requests raised any new issues, so I'm going to propose that we deny those. I'd also allow the full 180 days to return the PFD on this one, given the number of parties and the number of issues. We'll certainly need all of that. If y'all agree, I'm open to any other comments, or I'm ready to entertain a motion.
Well, I will attempt a motion, and like you, Chairman, pre-apologize. I don't feel very confident in some of the ways I might pronounce some of these names, so I apologize to those folks in advance. But I would move that we grant the hearing request of, and I'm going to try and do these very slow so everyone can keep up, but the hearing request of Heidi Berry, Jessica Bond, Kevin Bond, Taylor Brown, Kelly Compton, Cullen Gibson, Jody Gilbert, Liza Gomez, David Neal, Donna Sincere, Marina Soslova, Laura Throfel, Edenelson Uloa, Brittany Ward, Debbie Whitworth, and Stacy Wolf. That we deny the hearing requests, the remaining, hearing requests and requests for reconsideration. That we refer the matter to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues. A, whether the landfill gas management plant meets all applicable rule requirements, whether the site operating plan contains sufficient measures to prevent nuisance odors and control disease vectors, whether the draft permit is protective of the health and welfare of affected persons and their families, whether the applicant provided the required traffic data and documentation to meet the requirements of 30 TAC Section 330.61I, whether the visual screening of the landfill expansion complies with Commission rules and regulations, whether the draft permit contains sufficient control measures to protect groundwater, surface water, and drinking water as required by applicable rules, whether the landfill expansion is compatible with surrounding land use, whether the applicant's compliance history warrants denying or altering the terms of the draft permit, whether sufficient measures are proposed to control windblown waste as required by applicable rules, whether the applicant substantially complied with all applicable notice requirements, whether sufficient measures are proposed to maintain the landfill covered as required by applicable rule requirements, and finally, whether sufficient measures are proposed to control dust in accordance with applicable rule requirements, and specify that the maximum duration of the hearing is 180 days from the preliminary hearing to issuance of the proposal for decision.
I second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 2 is the application by the City of San Angelo for renewal of TCEQ water quality permit number WQ0010641003. The parties have been notified that the Commission will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Colleagues, this case falls squarely within Texas Water Code Section 26.028D, which provides that there's no right to a hearing for a renewal in which there's no increase in the authorized limits. The application meets the other requirements of this statute, including that the applicant's compliance history does not raise issues about its ability to comply. And accordingly, it's my view that we should deny the request for a hearing. In addition, there's one request for reconsideration, but in my view, it fails to point us to any material, technical, or legal flaws. So I think we should deny that request as well. Commissioner Lindley, how do you see it?
I'm in agreement completely.
Commissioner Janeka?
Also in agreement, and I think that those factors make this a relatively easy decision in terms of what
I agree.
What the matter is. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I will move that we find that there is no right to a hearing on this application pursuant to Texas Water Code, Section 26.028D and 30 Texas Administrative Code, Section 55.201I5. I further move that we deny the hearing request and request for reconsideration. Move that we issue the renewal of permit number WQ0010641003 to the City of San Angelo as recommended by the Executive Director. And finally, move that we adopt the Executive Director's response to comments.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 3 is the application by the City of Leander and Treviso Ltd. for a major amendment to TCEQ permit number WQ0015042001. The parties have been notified that the Commission will not take oral argument but may ask questions. Those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So again, we have a two-part analysis for considering requests for contested cases. Assuming they're not barred by the no increase renewal that we dealt with in the last item, But the two-part analysis is we first consider whether the requesters have met the procedural and substantive requirements to be entitled to a contested case. And then we consider which issues are appropriate to refer for hearing. And again, requesters who are affected in a manner different from the general public and who have articulated personal concerns that are relevant and material to the permit and have done so both in timely comments and a timely hearing request are entitled to a hearing. And colleagues, in this case, we have a request for a contested case from one person, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Wiatrowski. Mr. Wiatrowski lives within a half a mile of the facility and he rides his bike near the facility. He did articulate a personal interest, a recreational interest that is relevant and material to the permit, and he's met the procedural requirements to be entitled to a contested case. So I'm imagining y'all came out the same way, but any disagreement that Mr. Wiatrowski is an affected person? Commissioner Lindley?
No, I'm in agreement.
Commissioner Janeka?
None here.
All right, turning to the issues, and again, we refer issues of fact that have been timely raised and that are relevant and material to the application. Mr. Wiatrowski identified several relevant and material issues, which I would organize into the following 6 issues. The first is whether the draft permit is protective of his health. Second, whether the draft permit is protective of water quality by preventing effluent from reaching surface waters or adversely impacting groundwater. Whether the draft permit contains adequate provisions to protect against over-application and runoff of treated effluent from irrigation areas. Whether the applicant's compliance history raises issues regarding the applicant's ability to comply to warrant altering the draft permit, whether the draft permit complies with the requirements in chapters 309 and 222 to control odor and other nuisance conditions, and finally, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring requirements for proper operations. Commissioner Lindley, how does that sound?
Those 6 issues sound good to me. Thanks.
Commissioner Janeka?
I too am in agreement.
Okay. And on this one, I am going to propose that we refer it for ADR. There's a manageable number of issues, one requester, but I'm again going to suggest that we allow SOA the full 180 days to issue the PFD. And if that sounds good to y'all, I am ready to entertain a motion.
It does sound good to me, so I would move that we grant the hearing request of the Lieutenant Colonel Michael Wiatrowski, that we refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues. Issue number 1, whether the draft permit is protective of the requester's health. Issue number 2, whether the draft permit is protective of water quality by preventing wastewater effluent from discharging into surface waters or adversely affecting groundwater. Issue number 3, whether the applicant's compliance history for the previous 5 years raises issues regarding the applicant's ability to comply with the material terms of the permit and warrant altering the terms of the draft permit. Issue number 4, whether the draft permit complies with applicable requirements to abate and control nuisance conditions in the irrigation areas and odors as set forth in 30 TAC chapters 309 and 222. Issue number 5, whether the draft permit contains adequate provisions to protect against over-application and runoff of treated effluent from irrigation areas. Issue number 6, whether the draft permit contains adequate monitoring requirements to maintain proper operations. That we refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with SOA's scheduling process, and that we set the hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued.
I second the motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 4 is the consideration for approval to publish and solicit comment on one draft total maximum daily load for indicator bacteria in Hildebrandt Bayou of the Neches Trinity Coastal Basin. The Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, I am Kerry Neiman with the Water Quality Planning Division in the Office of Water. With me today are Tim Cawthon with the Total Maximum Daily Load Program and Stephanie Scogan with the Environmental Law Division. Today, the Executive Director is requesting the release for public comment of one total maximum daily load for indicator bacteria in Hildebrandt Bayou. The TMDL covers one assessment unit in one stream segment within Jefferson County. A stakeholder group was formed with balanced representation of all interested parties and was tasked with providing input on the TMDL. The development of this document included an active public participation effort and balanced stakeholder group coordinated by TCQ and the Texas Water Resources Institute. The success of this project is due to the collaborative effort of the individuals and organizations that put in the time to develop this document to improve water quality in their community. The Executive Director respectfully requests approval to publish the total maximum daily load for public comment. Permission is also requested to make non-substantive and clerical corrections before providing the document for public notice. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Neiman. I have none. Commissioner Lindley?
No questions, thanks.
Commissioner Janeka?
No questions. I appreciate ED staff's analysis on this matter.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, it didn't appear that anyone is signed in to speak on this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhirter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC recommends approval for publication of one draft total maximum daily load for indicator bacteria in Hildebrandt Bayou in the Neches Trinity Coastal Basin as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. I agree with that. This draft TMDL appears to meet all of the Clean Water Act requirements, and again, I think it's appropriate to put it out for comment. Commissioner Lindley, how do you see it?
I see it the same way.
Commissioner Janeka?
Likewise, I would make the motion if you're open for that. I'd move that we approve the publication of and solicitation of public comment on one draft total maximum daily load for indicator bacteria in Hildebrandt Bayou of the Neches Trinity Coastal Basin as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item 5 is the resolution to fill 25 of 41 membership positions on the Galveston Bay Council. The Executive Director's staff is here to present the item.
Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, I am Kerry Neiman with the Water Quality Planning Division in the Office of Water. With me today are Lisa Marshall with the Galveston Bay Estuary Program and Celia Castro with the Environmental Law Division. Today, the Executive Director is requesting your consideration to approve a resolution to fill 25 of the 41 membership positions on the Galveston Bay Council. The Galveston Bay Council is a 41-member advisory body to the Commission, whose function is to advise the Commission on the implementation of the Galveston Bay Plan, the Comprehensive Conservation and Management Plan for Galveston Bay. Members serve 4-year terms, and the terms are staggered such that approximately half of the terms expire at the same time. The members of the Galveston Bay Council represent diverse areas of interest in accordance with Federal Clean Water Act Section 320. The Galveston Bay Council is representative of federal, state, and local governments, research and academia, the private sector, and environmental and citizen groups. The 25 nominees were either selected by the Executive Director of their respective agency or entity, or his or her delegate, or were solicited and reviewed by the Galveston Bay Council Nomination Subcommittee and submitted to the Galveston Bay Council to determine which nominees to recommend to the Commission for consideration. We respectfully request approval of a resolution to fill 25 of the 41 membership positions on the Galveston Bay Council. Thank you, and we are available to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you again, Mr. Neiman. I have none. Commissioner Lindley?
No, I appreciate everyone's service on the council. I know it's a lot of work.
Thank you. Commissioner Janeka?
Well said. Likewise.
Thank you. And Ms. Smith, again, I didn't see anybody signed in to speak on this item. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And Mr. McWhirter, what are your thoughts?
OPIC supports approval of the resolution appointing members to fill positions on the Galveston Bay Council as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. And I want to echo my colleagues' gratitude to the individuals and organizations that are contributing their time and efforts to the council and the important work that it does. I've reviewed this item. I don't have any issues with the staff's recommendations, so I'm prepared to move forward. Commissioner Lindley, what do you think?
I'm in agreement, and I can move that we approve the resolution and revise Attachment A, appointing 25 people to fill the membership positions on the Galveston Bay Council as recommended by the Executive Director.
I second that motion.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
I vote aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next items.
Items 6 through 24 are our enforcement docket. The Executive Director's staff is here to present these matters.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Melissa Cordell of the Enforcement Division, and with me today is Brian Sinclair, also of the Enforcement Division, and Charmaine Backens of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 6 through 24. The total assessed administrative penalties are $243,870, with $24,902 deferred, $67,661 applied for supplemental environmental projects, and $151,307 to the general revenue. We respectfully request approval of these items and are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. I have none. Commissioner Lindley?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Janeka?
No questions for me, thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, has anyone signed in to speak on these items?
No, no one's registered.
Mr. McWhorter, what do you think?
OPIC has reviewed these items and we support approval of the proposed orders as presented by the Executive Director.
Thank you. I've reviewed these items and agree. I think we should move forward with approval, and I'm ready to entertain any additional thoughts or emotion.
I will make the motion that we adopt items 6 through 24 as recommended today by the Executive Director.
I second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Lindley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Janeka?
I vote aye.
I also vote aye. The motion carries. Ms. Smith, please call the next item.
Item number 25 is our public comment session. We don't have anyone signed in to speak at this time, but we'll pause in case. So that should take us to the end of the items posted for open session. Items 26 through 29 are for closed session, and the Commission will not meet in closed session today.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you, colleagues. With that, the time is 9:58, and we are adjourned.